Thank you to everyone who's joined. My name is Matt Plass. I'm the Chief Learning Officer with Interactive Services. And today we're going to be talking about what we're calling My First Year, which is a new vision for an onboarding program. And it's really based on a number of pieces of work we've completed recently with our clients, pulled together into what we feel is the beginnings of a really world-class approach to global onboarding programs. We're going to be here for about 40 minutes. For anyone who knows us, you'll know that we design and we deliver training solutions. We'd be very happy to talk to you about this concept or any of the other work we do. At the end of this session, there will be an email address and number on the screen that you'll be able to call if you'd like to continue this conversation or find out about any of the other things that we do. And please do follow up after the session with any questions you have by email, and we'll make sure someone reaches out to you. Okay, so in the next 40 minutes, we're going to spend a short amount of time looking at what you might call the onboarding landscape. So the issues that we're all facing with our onboarding programs, and a little bit about what it looks like when it works. And really we'll try and articulate the opportunity here. Why is it a great time to be talking about onboarding training? What's the opportunity for an organization that takes it seriously? And it's just interesting to note that we have a large number of people on the phone today. Unfortunately, too many to make it a conversation, so it will be more of a broadcast. But the uptake on this was very, very high on this particular webinar, which does lead me to think that this is a very important issue right now. So the first section will look at the landscape. The second section will look at what we're doing about it. So this is my first year concept. And we'll show you a few examples from other clients, debranded. We won't be able to say who we were working with, but it'll give you a sense of how some of these concepts have come to life for different organizations. One thing I would say is it has and it will look different every single time. So the first thing we want to call out is just some general intelligence around the state of onboarding. There's a quote at the top of the slide around staff turnover. We know anecdotally and through working with HR departments that most attrition happens within the first sort of 100 days. Unfortunately, people on the whole do not become productive in the new role until anywhere between sort of 7 and 10 months in the role. Now, you could look at 10 different organizations, you get 10 different sets of statistics, but what we do know is there's a high rate of attrition in the early stages, and quite often that attrition happens before those new hire employees have become productive. So you can immediately see that that's a great loss to the organization. If we look at the chart we have here, you can see that attrition rises and falls over the first few months. Interestingly, it pops back up again after 12 months. We don't have evidence to this, but my assumption is that it's because people make the decision to leave after 1 year and they want to have 12 months on their resume before they actually make the leap. So the opportunity, in very simple terms, is to get to productivity faster and to reduce the attrition rate. And some studies have shown, the Aberdeen group have been measuring this for years, they're fairly consistent with their findings. Organizations that do have a standard and effective onboarding process have been shown to experience greater productivity and greater retention as well. So this is really the opportunity here. We are looking at what can we do to target that attrition and bring it down, and to get people productive a little bit faster. Now again, I'd stress, I think the answer will be different in every single organization that we work with, but there will be some common themes that come out, and we've pulled those themes into what we're calling the My First Year approach. So it's probably worth looking at what we're hearing from our clients and from you out there on the phone and on the webinar about onboarding at the moment. We do know that, again, from the Aberdeen Group, 64% of companies are going to increase hiring between 2014 and 15. The economy is picking up. There is a general sense that companies will be bringing more headcount into the organization. But only 32% of those have a formal onboarding program in place. So if there was ever a situation where companies are going to spend a huge amount of money bringing people in, but not necessarily make the most from that spend, this could be that situation. Here are some of the things that we've heard. We've heard that there is a war for talent. The more that becomes the case, the better the job market, the harder it is to keep new hires, and the more they feel they could walk at any time and walk into another job. So it's very important that the program is solid. We're hearing that many organizations have what they describe as an inconsistent training voice. So it looks different in different locations. It might look different in different global locations, or it could even be across offices within the United States. Most organizations say that they lose too many people in the first 3 months. If you look at companies with hourly associate positions, the statistics are quite startling. Some companies have a higher turnover than they do a headcount due to the number of people who come in and out during those first 3 months. We also hear again and again that the manager has a huge role to play. Anyone who's put an onboarding program together or has been involved in a new hire onboarding will know how difficult it can be to engage managers in the whole process. They often don't understand the WIFM. They can't see what's in it for them. And until they do, and until they have a role in the program, it's always going to be very difficult to engage. We also find that many organizations tell us that their new hires need a very clear pathway to success. Too many new hires say that they were inducted into the company, they learned about history and the goals, but they never really saw their role outside of the immediate job they've been hired to do. And they didn't see until perhaps a year or 2 years into the role what their pathway to success within the organization could be. And of course, if people are ambitious and they don't see their pathway, the first thing they start to do is look outside of the organization. So we don't need to read through each of these, but you can see on the slide here a general sense of what people are saying, that the onboarding programs are a little inconsistent and perhaps they don't target the learner's true needs or the new hire's true needs in terms of wanting to be successful, wanting to believe that they've joined the right company, wanting to feel that the company is talking to them, who they are, to the right age group if they feel they're part of the younger audience. And we're hearing from managers and from trainers that the material is a little inflexible, that the ask is a little too high in terms of the time spent needed to bring people on. The other end of this, of course, is how the new hires feel. And it's worth looking at some of the feedback that we have when we talk to pilot groups in new hire training. This is what it looks like when it works. When we see a fantastic world-class induction training, this is the kind of feedback we get from our learners. So over on the left, we have learners saying that they know it was a really great induction. They're very happy they joined this company because already they understand where the company's come from, where it's going. They get introduced to the culture. They're encouraged to explore it. They start building a network very quickly. They feel welcomed and up to speed, part of the organization. They feel motivated. And bear in mind, new hires are or can be incredibly motivated to perform. They have taken on a new job. They've gone through what can be a very lengthy recruitment process. They've succeeded in that recruitment process. Now they really do walk in the door wanting to show that you, their employer, have made the right decision. In the center column, we've got some feedback around success. So people know it's a great induction program when they can see a clear roadmap to productivity. So here's the point at which we expect you to really be holding your own, to be an individual contributor. And after that, we're going to start talking about your career. Most organizations now will tell you that one of the keys to success is to have a very strong network, and you need to be building that network straight away. New hires love new hire programs that anticipate and address their concerns, and that can be anything from the question they're too nervous to ask because they feel it might make them look silly, like, is this shirt okay, or where's the toilet, all the way through to the more serious questions that they feel may be inappropriate for them to bring up in certain forums. So a good program anticipates these questions and it dives in just before they become an issue. We also find learners love driving their own professional development. They like to feel they have their hands on the wheel. Of course, in the first few days or the first week, it's very important that they feel guided. But actually, our experience is that new hires love to get involved and they like to feel they have some control from day one. And interestingly, if you talk to managers about successful new hires, they often say, I knew this guy was going to be great because right from day one, he was coming to me, or she was coming to me and saying, give me more of this, or tell me more about that, or how can I learn about X, or when can I do Y? And those are the kind of characteristics that you find in successful employees. And on the right-hand side, learners tell us that they want their manager to be engaged and they want clear checkpoints. They would like to see a really clear delineation between the role-specific training, which is what they've been hired to do, and then the induction training, which is their involvement in the company as a whole. And the two should feel connected. And I think this is what we see in onboarding programs that don't work quite often. The induction takes you up to the end of week 2. It's very fluffy and lovely, and you're inducted into the company, and you make some new friends, and everything's great. Then you move into your role-specific area, and you're told, yeah, great, glad you did all that now. Forget the training. This is how we really do things here. and it feels like you've moved from one world into another. A good onboarding program has these two roads running in parallel. And finally, that holistic view of the organization. It's almost impossible as a new hire, particularly a graduate new hire without a wide experience of business, to not be siloed within an organization. It's almost inevitable that you'll be sucked into your own area of the organization. So onboarding is the best and most important opportunity to give people that holistic view of the entire organization, not just their department. So we can take these responses, and I actually feel that they break out into three buckets, or three questions that the learner is asking. One of them is, I joined this company, but who are we, and what exactly is it that we do? You know, how do we make our money? Who are our customers? What's the culture here? How am I going to fit in? The next piece is around how will I be successful? It's what's my roadmap? Who's going to support me? What can I do to drive my own career? And the third one is very role specific. What's my roadmap to productivity? How am I going to learn about the role? And how am I going to find out about the entire organization? And we'll return to these three buckets later, because these three buckets really make up the core sort of swim lanes, if you like, of my first year concept. Okay, so my first year, it is very much a concept in the sense it's a framework, and we believe that it can be applied to all sorts of different onboarding programs, some of which might be completely online or completely in the classroom or a mixture of the two. Some might be 3 weeks long, others might be a literal first year. But it always comes down to three things. One is the allocation of three very clear learning tracks. So as a learner, a new hire, I'm absolutely clear on the three swim lanes that I'm moving in as I move towards productivity. The second is that you have manager checkpoints, and these are designed not just to bring the new hires through to productivity quicker, but to make sure that we target that attrition and we preempt issues before they become the kind of the kind of seriousness that means a new hire might leave. And thirdly, that idea of a pathway to productivity and then on into the career. So right from day one, how am I going to be successful here, and how in a year's time am I going to look back and say, taking this job was the best decision I ever made. So we'll look at all those three in turn, and we're going to come back to our buckets, our three questions. Who are we and what do we do? How will I be successful, and what is my role? And actually, those three buckets would translate into what we would think of as the swim lanes. So there's one piece around our organization, there's a piece around my success, and there's a piece around my role. And these are just examples below. So our organization piece is going to be around welcoming you to the organization, making sure you're aware of our history and the values that we have, of the brand, of the culture inside the company, what we do and how we do it. The second piece, my success, is all about that pathway to productivity, and it's all about understanding the industry, building your networks, learning how to be an effective communicator, learning how to collaborate, learning how to manage your manager. I think managing up is a fantastic skill for people to learn in the first few weeks in a new organization. And the whole goal of this swim lane is to make sure that people are not just inducted but are successful. And then the final piece, of course, is very role specific, and this is where most organizations you find they already have training, some good, some great, some amazing, but this is where you plug in the essential role pieces, and it might also be where you plug in some of the essential compliance pieces that they need as well. So these are our three swim lanes. And this is what it might look like if you map it out into a visual to show how the first year could work. So we see our three swim lanes. We've got the organization, we have the success piece, and we have the my role piece. You can note that we've optimistically assumed that we're going to manage to bring productivity into 6 months from 9 months, and we're doing that by having this very targeted approach through the role and through the success piece. We think that the induction into the organization is something that can happen in the first month. And interestingly, if you have a look at the way the bars are lined out, before day one, we'd actually recommend that you make your materials available to learners pre-day one. And we'll talk about how you can do that in a while. But giving the learners, when they are between offer letter and walking through the door for the first time, the opportunity to get to know your company and understand who you are and understand a little bit about what success looks like in that company is very valuable before day one. And then from day one, they've already begun that journey, and now they can pick up the role piece as well, and they're flying. You'll notice as well that throughout this, we have our manager check-in points. And interestingly, although I don't have the toggle between the two slides, these manager check-in points would be placed before what we know to be the key attrition points. We know there's high attrition after the first month, after the second month, after the third month, and then again at 12 months. We put in these check-in points 2 weeks before the point at which we know we often see high attrition. And there's analysis to be done. For every organization, it will be slightly different. It could depend on their onboarding program. There are lots of factors involved. But if we can identify where your attrition points are, we make sure we put these manager check-in points in advance of that. And we'll have a look at one of those now. So this is an example that we put together for one of our clients. This is what you're actually looking at is taken from a workbook that we would give the new hire. We are sort of device and modality agnostic in the sense that we develop classroom, online, mobile learning, workbooks, paper-based, on-the-job learning, and really it's about finding the right fit for the organization. In this case, it's an online, it's a PDF interactive media book, which means it's essentially a PDF workbook that has video and audio embedded and that you can type into. This is an example of a checkpoint at the end of week 1. The first thing we're going to do is work through with the manager and the new hire, checking off all the things that they've done that they should have done. And then we're going to ask these few questions at the end. With your leader, discuss, I'm looking at the bottom left here, what's working, what concerns you might have, and what support you feel you need. So this is a perfect time for the manager and the new hire to sit down, and this can be a 5-minute conversation, but a good manager will be able to tease out any genuine concerns that could be leading a new hire towards wanting to leave the organization, whereas actually they have the potential to be very successful there. You know, find out what the problem is before they know it themselves. Okay. I think the other thing that we have to consider when we're putting together new hire programs is that there are different types of new hire. You have graduate new hires, experienced new hires, so they're new to your company, but they come from similar organization, perhaps outside. We have new managers coming in, and then we have new managers through mergers and acquisitions who are joining our group, having not necessarily chosen to do so. So if you can imagine, you have 3 very different perspectives, 3 very different backgrounds, and 4 very different backgrounds, potentially 4 different levels of motivation as well. So a program that's going to meet all of those needs, well, that needs to be a very flexible program. So we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the learning blend now. At a high level, here are some of the things that we think need to go into that program. And I'll run through these each in turn. So the first one is pre-boarding access. I mentioned this earlier. Making materials accessible to new hires before day 1 excites them. It gives them an opportunity to learn about the organization before they join the organization. It answers some of the questions they might have been afraid to ask before they came in. It also perhaps gives them access to some of the forms and admin that they need. And it means that on day 1, everybody comes in with a great platform that they can work from. So even in the very first meeting when you get your new hires together, you can start talking about what they should already have learned. Profiling can be very important, particularly if it's online. Let people tell you what they already know. If they are an experienced new hire and they understand a version of what you're training them on, give them an opportunity to test down or out of that training, or just to profile themselves into a slightly different learning track. The manager checkpoints we talked about, make sure those are regular, make sure that they preempt attrition points. Create a training brand so that if we're providing flexible materials for managers to use off the cuff, or for different locations or organizations around the globe to use, even if they manipulate those materials and if they adjust them to meet their own needs, it still feels like it's part of the same brand and it still feels consistent. And this speaks to the idea of flexible materials as well. Wherever possible, if your program can be learner-driven, and by that I mean the learner is coming to the manager saying, I want more, I need more. First of all, you have a better uptake from the manager because they have less to do themselves, and secondly, the learner feels like they're in control of their organization, a little bit more accountability. They need that clear path to success, and they need those opportunities to build their network. So, still on the idea of the learning blend, what are the tools that are at our disposal? You'll be familiar with most, if not all of these. These are not, you wouldn't need to use everything that's here on any one onboarding program. In fact, I think it would be quite a feat if you did. But they're all worth considering. Down at the bottom right, we have this concept of a new hire portal. We love this approach. Not all of the materials, obviously, because some of them are proprietary, but some of the materials. A little bit about the history, the values, the culture. Materials that, in fact, can then be pushed back into recruitment and can have a very good effect in sorting people who will be a good fit for the company from perhaps people who wouldn't. From that portal, either pre-day 1 or post-day 1, there's all sorts of things that we can offer. There is e-learning. E-learning means different things. It just means electronic learning. So it's essentially anything online, whether it's a very cheap and nasty electoral course that we've put together very quickly over a weekend, or whether it's a beautifully packaged and produced piece of Flash or HTML5 e-learning. Very good for orientation admin, very good for talking about the culture, very good for exploring the business. Who are we and what do we do? This idea of interactive workbooks is very powerful as well. Give people control of their own destiny by putting the workbook into their hand. Instructor-led workshops are very good for the group work, for the practice, for digging down into the role-specific pieces. And then use the social aspect. Get people networking, using Twitter, team activities, whatever platforms you're comfortable with. The only thing we'd say there is don't introduce a new platform unless you have to. We have too many platforms in our lives already. And then lastly, most important, this idea of checkpoints, whether they are manager check-ins or self-assessments. And I would say in the first 3 months of a new hire's career, it's probably more important that they do self-assessments and manager check-ins than that they do formal assessments at this stage. Not everyone agrees with me there. So how do we decide what to use where? Well, when we were doing the analysis with you, if we're helping you putting together an onboarding program, we take each topic, so we create a matrix of content that would run across the onboarding program, and we decide what it is we're trying to do with that piece of content. Are we trying to build general awareness, in which case it becomes a sort of lower quadrant, or are we trying to build expert behavior or behavior change? And this leads us to be able to pin different modalities into different areas. There's no right answer to doing this. It's different for every organization. But this example shows, for example, if I have taken someone into role, they're already very experienced, they're already considered to be an expert, what I really need is to make them an expert like us, singing to our tune. What I need to do is I need to get them into the classroom to do some real live work. It's not going to be enough to give them an e-learning course or to give them a workbook. We need to get them working on real projects. Having said that, if we're talking about something where all I need to do is raise general awareness across the whole population, it might be an e-learning course or a podcast or a web quest or a webinar much like this one, which is fantastic for broadcasting information. You'll never create an expert, but you will get the right information out to a lot of people very quickly. So this is the kind of matrix that we use to assign the modalities. I don't know why it keeps doing this, but it does. Okay, so we've pretty much talked through this. The portal's the glue. The e-learning engages the learner before day one, who you are, what you do, where you came from. Very good for compliance, very good for admin and basic orientation. The workbook is interactive, it's media rich, it guides the new hire through their first 90 days perhaps and beyond. It's their pathway, but it's also their living action plan. It's something they can write into and capture, use with their manager to make sure they're on track. Instructor-led workshops is very, very good for the role specific. That's when you pull new hires together to practice general and role specific skills. The group work helps to build the network, and it allows leaders to calibrate the behaviors and practices that people have been learning online. Don't leave out the network building to chance. Structured social activities are very important. Make sure that these happen. Rather than asking people just to network or to use Twitter or to get together in social media, give them a task to perform and actually build it into the onboarding program. And then finally, preempt those attrition points with plenty of self-assessment and plenty of manager check-in. It's not just about have you understood, it's not just about have you shown you can perform a task, it's about are you happy, do you still feel you made the right decision, do you feel supported, is there anything else you need, are you comfortable with the speed that we're moving at? And obviously that's a question that both the manager and the new hire have to answer. But if they're both able to answer and address any issues early, then that attrition is liable to come down. So I'm going to run very quickly through a few quick examples. This was a purely online piece of work that we put together for a client. If I walk you through the interface, it was available, actually not before day one, but from day one. You can see in the top bar, we look at my learning, day one, my career, and HR. So there's a real blend here of e-learning and also some of the forms they need to fill in, some of the administrative information they need for human resources. So we look at the history and values, we look at the brand, we look at markets and solutions in this first piece. Then when we move on, it's about day one. So we're very clear to say day one is going to be very structured for you. Here's exactly what's going to happen. There's two areas of our intranet we'd like you to go into, the welcome area and the get started area. You can also look at some things that are specific to your region or your job. We also have a piece on the career. So the career is very important. Right from day one, we're saying, look at the programs that we have in place to help you through your career. There will be mentoring. We have the Excellent Sales Manager Development Program. There are different job roles that you can look at. If you fancy moving into a different job role, you can take a look at the curricula that you would need to follow if you wanted to shift roles. And then, of course, the role of management as well. So although this is all online, it's available to the new hire, I think up to 90 days and beyond, and it gives them a very holistic view, not only of the organisation, but of how they can be successful. In the next example, whereas the previous one was HTML and it was purely online, this is one of those PDF media books that I mentioned before. It's a workbook that's given to the new hire at the beginning of their tenure. It's broken down with tabs on the right-hand side for navigation. It introduces all the different things that the new hire is likely to encounter. So some e-learning, portals, documents, social activities, videos, classroom, and then those checkpoints with the manager that we mentioned. It also breaks out, and here we're coming back to our idea of the three swim lanes, the organisation, and then the role-specific, and the success piece. The top line is, in this case, it's called general, but actually this is about the success piece. This is about learning to be a team worker and a collaborator, learning about agility, and learning about customer engagement. And then below is the role-specific pieces that will be plugged in as you move through. And just to show you what we mean by the media book, various pages, you can watch a video or listen to an audio, and then you capture the answers as you go. So this becomes, it's a workbook, it has questions in it, but it also becomes that structure for the manager conversation. And again, we have that checkpoint piece again. And then the final piece, the final example will show, this is when it was reduced into a very, very small program. This is a 5-day onboarding program. So not my first year, just my first week, really. But it's all online. It's very short. It's very quick, but it embeds you into the role very fast. It welcomes you. It shows you the store you're going to be working in. It's very clear on the expectations from your role. You watch a video that walks around the area of the store that you're going to be working in. You have a chance to practice some of the key tasks. You have a chance to watch them being done, and then you have a pre-test. And finally, these two buckets at the bottom, check it and experience it. Well, that's when you come out of the classroom, out of the online learning and into the real world where you start completing activities in store. So those are three very different examples. In terms of how we do this, how we get it together, it's really this 5-step process. The analysis piece up front is all about working with you and working with your human resources data to understand the attrition points and understand the proficiency or productivity points for your new hires. So when do you lose people the most, and how long is it taking for people to get to productivity? Once we know those two numbers, those become our goals, essentially. Those are our measurement goals. We want to see reductions in both of those numbers. We also need to understand the workforce culture, and we need to understand what it takes to be successful in your organization. Some organizations, it's all about the network. Others, it's about how you present yourself, and others, it's purely, if we're doing a sales program, for example, it can be very much about the relationships you build and the number. The next piece is around design. We would create a content matrix, and we're trying to identify all the different pieces that need to go into our three swim lanes: organization, success, and role. This would be a matrix design. There might be some crossover between materials. Some of it would be generic and would apply to a number of job roles. Other pieces would be very job role specific. But we're mapping every piece of content that we think a new hire needs in the area of the organization that we're working. And then we go back to assign those modalities. So that's deciding, well, is this suitable for a workbook? Should this be a short video, or is it a longer classroom piece? We map that into a learner journey so you can see the end-to-end process, and we'd help to create a training brand for you as well. And it might also involve speccing a portal and coming up with a communications plan to help the business understand the road that we're going down. Then we come into the build, designing and building, creating the learning events, creating templates so that your regions and managers can quickly create huddle templates and huddle activities, and then creating the communication assets as well. When it comes to deployment, it's very important that we communicate this to the business, particularly to new managers, even to the point of running 1-hour manager briefing sessions where we outline the new program, talk to them about their role, and explain that your new hires are going to be coming to you at the end of each week to say, I'm due a 20-minute sit down with you, check-in point. Now, the new hire will be driving those sessions, but the manager needs to be aware of their responsibilities. If possible, we deployed some pre-day one public-facing content via a portal, but we certainly want to deploy the internal-facing portal for day one and beyond. And then finally, it's about measuring and refreshing. So let's have a look 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line. Let's have a look at the HR metrics. Have we reduced attrition rates? Have we sped up the time to productivity? How do we know? Well, the metrics will be there in numbers from human resources, hopefully, but we can also speak to learner focus groups, manager focus groups, exit interviews for those employees who didn't make it past the first month or 6 months or 12 months, and function leader focus groups as well. So the people who head up functions, anecdotally, are they seeing an improvement in the quality of new hires who are coming through as a result of this program? So it's a combination of hard metrics and anecdotal evidence. And that's how we would work with you to develop, build, deploy, and then measure whatever your My First Year program ended up looking like. And that's the end of the presentation. I think we've saved a little bit of time, so I'm sure you'll be happy to get a few minutes back in the day. We covered a lot of ground and we did it very quickly. If there's anything you'd like to follow us up on, then please either contact me or use the details here to contact John O'Brien, who's our marketing executive. My First Year is a fairly new concept. It builds on work that we've done over several years with many clients. It's a very flexible framework. It's something that we're still understanding ourselves, but we really do feel that if you take those two key metrics, the attrition rate and the productivity point, and you target those two metrics, then you are going to have a very, very effective onboarding program. Thank you for your time today. I'm delighted to see how many people turned up, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.